What a disappointment. I used to watch you on TV. What can I get you? And this clown turns and says, the psychopath says, how about I get you what you deserve?
The movie begins with an animated sequence titled Me and My Shadow in this Looney Tunes-inspired cartoon short. The Joker is a famous celebrity preparing for a performance. However, his shadow rebels against him, starts acting out his persona, and after injuring several people, steps onto the stage to begin a singing performance as the real Joker. When the Joker finally reclaims his identity from the shadow, the police arrive and start beating him up. In the next scene, Arthur is in Arkham State Hospital, where he has been imprisoned for 2 years due to his crimes. One morning, he has a scheduled meeting with his lawyer and the prison guards wake him up to get ready. Arthur is taken to his lawyer, Miss Stewart. On the way, they pass by a music class. A girl named Harleen Quinzel, also known as Lee, notices Arthur as he walks by, calls out to him, and mimics a gun gesture at her head, which makes Arthur smile. When they reach Miss Stewart, she is upset to see that the guards brought Arthur without an umbrella, leaving him soaked from the rain.
Jesus Christ, you couldn't get him a f***ing umbrella.
Oh, come on, counselor. You know, we can't give these boys umbrellas.
It's for their own good.
Oh, don't give me your shit.
She then explains that Dr. Batty believes Arthur developed a split personality due to his traumatic childhood. This other Joker personality inside him, according to her, is responsible for his criminal behavior and needs proper mental health care and doctors for treatment. Therefore, Dr. Batty wants to videotape an interview with Arthur to prove his competency for trial.
Arthur, I'm not here only to help with your defense.
Would he like to talk to me?
In the following scene, Arthur is in the jail courtyard. A young prisoner named Ricky approaches him.
The guard said you wanted to show me how to kiss. But they said Joker's a really good kisser. Nobody's ever gave me a kiss before.
Arthur gives him a quick kiss on the lips and then goes to the guards, who find the situation amusing. He doesn't get a cigarette unless he tells a joke.
No, what are you doing? He doesn't get a cigarette unless he tells a joke.
No, come on. He still makes us laugh, doesn't he?
When I saw you on Murray Franklin, the whole time I was watching, I kept thinking, I hope this guy blows his brains out.
Arthur then arrives in a room where it's announced on the news that he's been declared competent for trial. But Assistant DA Harvey Dent holds a press conference stating that the state will seek the death penalty for him. He calls Arthur a monster, while Arthur's supporters in Gotham continue to cause chaos in his name, seeing him as a martyr. Another prisoner asks Arthur how he feels about everything he just heard, and Arthur joyfully sings "For Once in My Life," expressing his love for Lee. Later, Jackie takes Arthur to a screening of the movie The Bandwagon. There, Arthur sits with Lee, but she wishes to go outside with him. Arthur tells her that if he did, the guards would shoot them, so he goes back to watching the movie. Meanwhile, Lee tries to get closer to him, but he doesn't pay attention. She then goes to smoke at the back, lights a matchbox, and throws it down, setting the theater room on fire before returning to her seat. As the fire spreads, it catches everyone's attention and people start panicking, rushing to escape. Taking advantage of the distraction, Arthur and Lee finally kiss and sneak out of the prison building. Outside, the two happily start singing and dancing. Finally, they reach the facility's entrance gate, where a crowd of reporters is already waiting to cover Arthur's story. They start climbing the gate, but the guards quickly catch up and take them back to their cells.
You want to play games on my watch, Arthur? 2 weeks in the hole.
Later on, Lee visits Arthur in his cell, telling him that the guards allowed her in. She informs him that she's being sent back home because the administration sees Arthur as a bad influence on her. However, she's happy that she'll now have a chance to attend his trial. Every day the two get closer, but before they proceed, Lee says she wants to be with his real self. She pulls out a bag of makeup she secretly brought with her and paints his face like a clown. After this, they share an intimate moment together. A few days later, Miss Stewart arranges an interview for Arthur with a television personality, Patty. She instructs Arthur to act as his true self and try to show that his alternate personality is responsible for the crimes while his real self is a good person.
You want me to call you Arthur or the Joker?
2 years ago, the name Arthur Fleck hit Gotham like a hurricane. Fleck committed 5 horrific murders in the span of just 4 weeks. The Joker is sitting down for his first interview since that infamous night on Murray Franklin.
Take me back to that night on stage with Murray Franklin. What was going through your mind when you pulled out that gun and blew his brains out?
I don't really remember much from that night. You did it on live TV, pal. Doesn't get any more real than that. I thought Murray was playing a part in my show. You get what you bleeping deserve. That's what you said. Do you deserve to die?
That's not who I am.
That wasn't really you.
Alternate personality. This killer clown in you killed Murray. But do you really care? You don't want to talk about the things that I did in the past, not about who I am now. That's what we should be talking about, Patty. What changed? I'm not alone anymore. You two put on quite a performance that night. A fool can have her. When the interview airs on TV, Lee, standing outside a TV shop, sees him singing for her on the screen. She breaks the shop's glass, steals the TV, and takes it with her. A few days later, Arthur's trial begins, and he is taken to court under tight security. Upon reaching the courtroom, Arthur searches for Lee, but she hasn't arrived yet. As the trial begins, Lee finally arrives, but is seated at the back. Meanwhile, the prosecution first calls a psychiatrist, Dr. Liu, as an expert witness. Dr. Liu states that he interviewed Arthur for about 2 hours, but found no evidence of multiple personality disorder. He believes that Arthur may have some minor psychological issues, but he committed the murders willingly and only acts as if he has another personality when it's convenient. When it's the defense's turn, Ms. Stewart points out that Dr. Liu only interviewed Arthur for 89 minutes, which is not enough time to diagnose his psychiatric disorders. Ms. Stewart reveals that Arthur was physically abused in his childhood, which may have led him to retreat into fantasy and adopt another identity that may have surfaced when he was being bullied on the subway by 3 drunk men. From all the trauma and abuse he suffered when he was attacked by 3 drunk bullies on the subway, then I remember Sophie Obe, I had another. Mr., these are my own personal private jokes.
Then I remember Sophie. Had another dream about her. Forgot it. I almost never dream. What do I gotta do to remember?
That's Sophie Dumont, Mr. Fleck's neighbor whom he was obsessed with. November 17th, stabbed Randall Kimmons Hofer to death and killed Murray Franklin. He often wrote about his fantasies, women he had imaginary relationships with. These unfunny jokes. Moments later, Miss Stewart visits Arthur and tells him that they can win the case, but Lee could ruin everything. Arthur replies that Lee is just like him, so she's looking out for him. Hearing this, Miss Stewart reveals that Lee actually belongs to a wealthy part of the city, and that her father, who is a doctor, is actually alive. Furthermore, Lee voluntarily committed herself to Arkham Asylum but later checked herself out. She has never set fire to any apartment, and even attended grad school to study psychiatry. Arthur once again drifts into his world of imagination, where he performs a stage song with Lee. In the song, they both express love for each other, but Arthur starts to feel that Lee is making it all about herself. Arthur sees Lee pointing a gun at him, and then she shoots him. Arthur is left confused, wondering why Lee did this to him. In the following scene, Arthur has returned to the asylum, where Jackie informs him that Lee has come to visit him. When he meets Lee, he asks if she lied to him.
Did you lie to me?
Sure. I mean, everybody lies a little.
You could have just wrote me a letter.
I haven't done anything with my life like you have. Did you really watch that TV movie they made about me 20 times? It was great.
They're laughing at you in there. She doesn't care about you. I do.
The next day, the trial hearing resumes, and the prosecution calls Arthur's former neighbor, Sophie. Sophie recounts how Arthur once broke into her house, though she didn't report it to the police at the time. When Harvey asks if this behavior aligns with Arthur's usual self or shows a different personality, she says she didn't know him that well. However, she did have a good relationship with Penny, Arthur's mom, who told her that her son was mentally disturbed. Afterward, Miss Stewart questions Sophie, asking if Arthur ever threatened her or her daughter. Sophie states that Arthur never did anything like that, and that even Penny used to say he wouldn't hurt a fly. She adds that Penny told her she'd been telling Arthur a story since his childhood about how he came into this world to spread joy, which is why she used to call him Happy. Sophie couldn't believe that he'd based his whole life around this made-up story. She just thought it was ridiculous that he thought he could make people laugh. I mean, she said,
No, I mean, he's wearing clown makeup.
Due to the chaos in the courtroom, the session is adjourned, and Arthur is taken back to the court holding cell. After a few moments, Lee comes to see him and encourages his actions. She tells him that what he did was right, and that the audience present is supporting his decision. Later, as he is being taken back to the asylum, a radio news broadcast reveals that although Miss Stewart and Harvey opposed Arthur's self-representation, the judge reluctantly allowed it. Upon returning to the asylum, all the inmates show their support for him and cheer, causing chaos that eventually forces the guards to intervene to restore order. The next day, the hearing resumes, and Arthur arrives dressed in his Joker attire. Meanwhile, District Attorney Harvey calls his next witness, Gary Puddles. Gary, a former co-worker of Arthur, testifies that he witnessed Arthur murder another co-worker, Randall. Instead of disproving him, Arthur first mocks Gary's last name, Puddles.
Mr. Puddles.
Questioning what kind of name it is. Tell me, sir, is that your God-given name? Yes. You expect us to believe that your last name is Puddles? I'm not going to let you turn my courtroom into a circus, Mr. Puddles. What else did you see that day?
Stabbing him in the eye and bashing his head into the wall many, many times.
Did you catch my act on the Murray Franklin show later that night? I was locked up in the police station in an interview room. No, you didn't see the show. You didn't see anything I had to say. I can't believe it when, as you say, you saw me bash Mr. CL. Did I seem like a different person? It isn't you. It isn't me. So you don't think this is me, because nobody knew I existed. But look around, look at all these people. What you are proving here today is that you are no different. Stupid guards at Arkham think they can treat me like trash.
I am free!
You got a flair full of dramatic. You're tugging at my heartstrings, little Gary. You were the only one at work who never made fun of me. I said no more questions, all right? At this point, some people criticize Arthur, saying he's heading straight for the death penalty, while a reporter asks what he would do if he were released. In response, Arthur looks at Lee, who begins singing, "We're going to build a mountain from a little hill." Back in his imagination, he then performs the song with Lee and even marries her. Later, when Arthur is brought back to Arkham Asylum, Jackie and the other guards, furious at being insulted on live TV, viciously attack him. They tear his clothes and remove his makeup, telling him that his getup doesn't make him better than them. "Oh, I'm in trouble. Move, is he? Darling, come on, I think he knocked himself out." "All right, I get it, Jackie. Let me tell you what I used to do about my mother, and she only did abusive guys. Why just stay with your abusive boyfriend? Piece the hell out of me. Let's go. What did you do to him?" He strangles Ricky to death while Arthur listens to everything from his cell. The next day is the final day of the trial, and Lee arrives enthusiastically dressed. Arthur, once again in his Joker attire, is instructed by Judge Herman to give his closing remarks. Arthur brings a chair close to the jury and sits silently. Finally, Arthur says he had planned to act as the Joker and blame everyone for his miserable life. But now he can't do it because he's not the person people expect him to be. Furthermore, he says that there is no Joker. Rather, it was just a fantasy he created for himself. He confesses to killing 6 people, including his mother.
I killed 6 people. I wish I didn't, but I did.
But now he wants to move past it all and start a new life. Saying this, he becomes emotional and wishes he hadn't committed those murders. But he knows he can't change the past. Hearing this, his supporters are disappointed, and many, including Lee, leave the courtroom. Moments later, about an hour after his closing remarks, the jury reaches a verdict. Before the verdict is announced, Arthur tries calling Lee to get her to come. He sings a song to let her know that if she leaves him, he'll have nothing left. On the other end, Lee listens to his song on voicemail but doesn't respond in her state of disappointment. Shortly after, the jury begins announcing its verdict declaring Arthur guilty of his murders. In the matter of the people of the state of New York versus Arthur Fleck, guilty as charged with murder in the first degree against Maurice Franklin. Find Arthur Fleck guilty as charged. Stop, hey, let's get them out of here. Moments later, Arthur regains consciousness, exits through a broken wall, and steps outside. Some of his supporters spot him and try to help him escape by putting him in a car. The police arrive and send Arthur back to the asylum. A few days later, a guard tells Arthur that he has a visitor. As Arthur is on his way to meet his visitor, a young inmate stops him and offers to tell him a joke, which Arthur agrees to hear. A psychopath walks into a bar and sees his famous clown sitting there all alone.
I used to watch you on TV. What can I get you? And this clown turns and says,
"How about I get you what you deserve?" As Arthur collapses, dying from his wounds, the young inmate sitting behind him laughs like a madman and carves a smile onto his face with a knife, becoming the real Joker. And this is where the movie ends. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.